The state in the Senzo Meyiwa trial is today expected to argue in the High Court in Pretoria why it should be allowed to ask the third witness, Tumelo Madlala, to point out the intruder who allegedly attacked Meyiwa among the 5 suspects in court. Now, Madlala, who was one of Meyiwa's close friends, was in the Foslor's house when Meyiwa was shot and killed on the 26th of October 2014. Yesterday, Madlala revealed that he had recognized one of the intruders in the courtroom, which had prompted him to ask for a break during his testimony on Tuesday. But when the state prosecutor, Advocate George Beloy, asked whether Madlala could identify any of the accused in the court, the legal representatives for the accused objected. It was then decided that the matter would be argued today. For more on this, let's cross over to our reporter, Chriselda Lewis. She is just outside the court. Chriselda, as always, thanks so much for talking to us this morning. So yesterday, what a day, moving ahead swiftly. And today is really going to start with quite a bang because we're going to find out about the whole identification of the actual person who was in the house. So let's get this from you. Talk to us. Good morning.
Well, good morning to you, Leanne. Certainly going to be a very interesting morning. Well, that's first if the court does allow the state's third witness, Tumelo Madlala, to point out who he says is inside the court, who was one of the suspects or the intruders on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was killed in that Foslor's home. We're expecting the defense to argue that this is not procedural. We already saw this yesterday where the defense basically says they are being ambushed and that Madlala was never brought before a formal identity parade in front of the 5 men who are currently in the dock. You would recall towards the majority of yesterday afternoon, Madlala was asked about whether he had participated in an identity parade or participated in the drawing up of an identikit. He says he'd only done each of those once. So what we're expecting the defense very much to do this morning is to question, the state's procedure in asking if Tumelo Madlala is able to identify any of the individuals inside the house as one of the suspects, one of the individuals that was inside the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed, as one of the men who is currently before the dock, one of the 5 men. So that's how we're expecting proceedings to unfold this morning. But there was quite a lot, Leanne, that came out of court yesterday, including where Madlala says that when they moved with Kelly Khumalo, Zandi Khumalo and others to the house that Senzo Meyiwa had shared with Kelly Khumalo, he says that Khumalo had refused police entry onto the premises that she shared with Meyiwa. At some point she asked for the electricity to be switched off and basically did not want to speak to police. Also statements about how Kelly Khumalo was allegedly offered an overseas vacation by the father of one of the people that was inside the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed. Chico Selotwala, he says, had offered Kelly Khumalo an overseas trip. This was just days after Meyiwa had been killed. And how we're able to ascertain this is because Madlala was also asked in court approximately how many days he had stayed in Johannesburg. Basically, after the incident, he had mentioned 3 days because he was asked whether an identikit and the ID parade had been done within the 3 days that he had been in Johannesburg following the incident, and he said yes. So one could possibly deduce from what he is saying is that within that space of 3 days, he does not have the dates. He says he can't remember well because this incident had taken place so many years ago, but he did say 3 days he had been in Johannesburg, and that was when the identity parade and the identikit had taken place. So that's essentially what he says. He also spoke yesterday at length about how Senzo Meyiwa was moved from inside the house, how heavy he was, how they had to fold his feet as they put him into the car to take him to the hospital, and also detailed how the news was broken to them by a nurse who had brought an x-ray and basically said that Senzo Meyiwa was no more, detailing also what happened at the hospital, saying that there had seemed to have been a scuffle between Kelly Khumalo and Mandisa, who is Senzo Meyiwa's wife, and basically saying he saw some hair on the floor at the time. There'd been many people who had come to the hospital, including some of the Orlando Pirates players. But what we also understand is that Madlala deposed several statements, and those statements are expected to come under intense scrutiny. Whether he has contradicted himself in these statements is certainly something that we're going to see as he continues to take the stand.
Yeah, another interesting day expected there in the High Court. Chriselda, thanks very, very much for filling us in, also talking us through what happened yesterday, and of course today that trial once again starting, and we're all waiting to find out if that person can be identified or not, and that's I suppose how it's all going to start this morning.